Well, and yourself. Well, thank you. And you, Craig? Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, when I was at university, I was an ANC card-carrying member. Uh, that was in 1989. Um, I started doing work for I should first mention that I was working for a company in an industry which is very much dominated by government work. A company that had close ties to the government and the ANC as a party. And I wanted to get involved in this, conservative or right-wing stuff, notwithstanding the industry that I was in. So I began to kind of clandestinely write articles for Suidlanders from about, I can't remember the date of the first article, but let's call it approximately September 2015. And I wrote it under a pen name, which is a kind of a joke name between my kids and me, which is Frederick von Strossenhausen Grossen, the man who built the tallest building. It was just a joke name. Cantwell. Yeah. Craig, I have to begin by saying to you that when we were in the USA touring around, we initially did a presentation to a kind of a prepper group, and then to a Christian group, and then to a historical society in California. And over time, we built up a little reputation, and people started contacting us, and we would investigate the opportunities. We, for example, met with Dr. David Duke. And immediately after meeting him, we decided to have no more to do with him, because he was far, 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 far too right wing, if you like. So we dealt with many different people in the USA, some of whom were kind of neo-Nazi, and then we would pull away. We didn't want anything to do with them, but we did meet some guys. And regarding Christopher Cantwell particularly, an interview was arranged with him. We had nothing to do with it. We didn't know who he was. It was a radio interview, sounded like a great opportunity. He treated us with terrific respect. Then, about a year and a half later, when Jan Lamprecht was making outrageous accusations against me, this guy said, "Look, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a chance to answer." And I took it, and I don't regret doing it. I, I doubt it. No, not the same guy. The Jan Lamprecht that I'm talking about, the one who's made all these accusations against me and has publicly accused Mr. Miller of murdering his sister, and the same guy who exposed my school-going children. This maniac lives in Montgomery Park in Johannesburg. Deborah de Ritter, yeah, I know who she is, but not really. I mean, I've heard her voice notes. I've never met her. I've never met anybody who knows her. Well, as far as I know, anyway, nobody's ever said to me, "Oh, yes, I've met her," or "I've spoken to her." So I know of her only by virtue of those couple of prophecies, highly speculative, if I may say so, that did the rounds. Yeah, you know, yeah. I've met Adam. It so happened by coincidence that we were on the same farm. He was installing a solar panel or a solar system for the farmer. That's what he does for a living. And I went to that farm for kind of like a getaway. You know, it was after a very stressful period. I took a few weeks off and went and camped in the veld there. And so, you know, if I came to the farmhouse, for example, he would be there working on the solar stuff, and we would chat. And Adam is he's a unique man. He really does have some original ideas. I don't hate Adam, but I don't subscribe to some of the creative thoughts that he has. No, no, he doesn't. He's, as far as I know, he's not a member of any group, any region, any province, not whatsoever. However, do bear in mind, Craig, that there are a lot of kind of fellow travelers out there that we bump into, that we connect with, that might feel that they know us or they've spent time with us and they'll comment on it. Deborah de Richter is in a similar category. I think I've never ever heard any provincial leader say to me, "Oh, she's in my group," or I I can't swear to it, but I cannot see that she is a Suidlanders member. However, she is on the right wing. She is a professing Christian, whether her prophecies are right or wrong. The likelihood of our paths crossing, that is to say, Suidlanders in general and hers, and Suidlanders in general and Adams, are, you know, it's like 100% inevitable sooner or later. You know, we're moving in the same circles, even though we may not subscribe to some of their thinking. Yeah, yes. Craig, it's a very difficult thing because of the specific definition. Hello, Craig. I'm sorry about that. It was on my end. Mm, yes. Craig, it's a hell of a difficult question because the definition of genocide is very specific, but you can talk about a genocide happening. The problem for me is that I have to justify it. If I go to the US State Department and I hold a conversation and I've claimed that there is an actual genocide happening in South Africa, and they say to me, right, well, what are the numbers involved? And I say, well, 59 farmers were murdered last year. They're not going to take me seriously. It is, as one gentleman in the US said to me, and regrettably, I can't use his name, he said to me, you can never quote me on this, but you and I both know that what's happening in South Africa is a genocide. But until the numbers reach a threshold that we can use, that we can present to the world, I cannot make that claim on your behalves, and you guys should avoid using that term. So it's a compromise. I'm not proud of it, and this forum, you and me now, is the first time that I've ever spoken candidly about it. And I'm beginning to wonder whether I should have, but that is the very difficult position that we're in between you and me. Mm, 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 mm. That's correct. You're correct. Yes. Mm, yes. Mm, Mm. Yeah. It's yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Okay, just to correct you very slightly, we were in code green for the entire duration of Suidlanders' existence, including at the time of Nelson Mandela's funeral. We adopted a wait and see attitude. About 8 weeks ago, we went to code yellow because there are specific threats of which we've become aware recently. One of those, for example, is the massive stockpiling of arms, Chinese arms that have come across the border from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Botswana. And we were approaching an election, and we felt that it was time for people to be conscious that there's an increased level of threat. We then received a few weeks ago specific intelligence of specific attempts or plans for attempts by factions within the revolutionary spectrum. When I say revolutionary spectrum, let's be clear here. You have the ANC, the EFF, and the BLF, and then you have the Zuma camp and kind of outside of the ANC. And in theory, the four are more or less separate to some degree. In practice, it has become clear over recent times um, there are very sinister connections between them. Dr. Franz Cronje has spoken at length about this, and the simple reality is that there is a massive conspiracy, for want of a better word, on the go that nobody fully understands. Right. And we became aware of a specific action that has been planned and which they shall endeavor to carry out in this forthcoming period. If that action doesn't take place, people may laugh at us for years to come and say that the Suidlanders were hysterical, neurotic, paranoid, got worked up over nothing, made a mountain out of a molehill. That's fine. However, the specific intelligence that we've received from impeccable sources, beyond dispute, impeccable sources, is enough for us to be satisfied that after years of being in code green, we are now living in a time where things are coming to a head and we should be a little bit more vigilant than we have been. Now, the second part of your question is about the monies. I don't know what money they're talking about, but it doesn't exist. We are an audited organization because of rumors and allegations and so on. I think that our registered accountant dude, he and I were chatting the other day. He's an independent practitioner with a license and all of this kind of stuff. Um, Told me that he's recently been to SARS 11 times to ensure that they are satisfied. You know, to really absolutely be on the right side of the law and to keep the moral high ground. So we're not rolling in cash. It's just as simple as that. As far as st- stuff stolen is, yeah, yeah, yes, yeah. No, I saw that list, and I said to your colleague, and I know that she's a bit shy about her name being mentioned, so I'll err on the side of caution for her sake. I said to her, look, can you tell me where the connection is? I understand the allegation, but but what is the connection here? Because there's no distinct connection. Right. No, no, I looked at all of that. That's not my number. I wish it was, because that guy's doing pretty well. Yeah, 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 yeah. Look, I'll tell you what. I'll give you my ID. My name is not Christian Gous, and my ID number is 7101045274080. As simple as that. It's not complicated. And my name is Simon John Roche. Roche is the spelling of the surname. Born on the 4th of January 1971. So, regarding the plundering of the warehouses, storehouses, what have you, it's very important that people should recognize that Suidlanders has never pretended to be able to provide a complete solution. We've never said, if you participate in Suidlanders' plan, we're going to give you a car and a tent and this and that, the next thing. We've always made it clear that that's prohibitively expensive. For example, we model, excuse me, our projections on an estimate of about 800,000 refugees. That's 1 in 6 white people. The white population of South Africa is somewhere between 4.6 and 4.8 million people. Let's call it 4.8 million people, because it's an easy number to work with. It's divisible by 8 and by 4 and by 2 and by 6 and by 3. So if we get 800,000 people, that's 1/6 of South Africa's white population. Now, again, just to keep it simple, I'm going to fudge a little bit here and say, let's say we got 1 million people. Nice, easy, round number for people to understand. And let's say we gave each of them one water filter. This is in a time of anarchy. There's an assumption that the electricity is not working, that if the electricity isn't working, water can't be pumped into the reservoirs on top of Northcliffe Hill, for example. So there's no water. And sewage can't be pumped through the kink in the line. You use the toilet, you flush the toilet, that sewage runs down the line, and at some point it has to be pumped. It has to be helped on its way to the sewage farm. Right, so there's no electricity, therefore there's no sewage function, and so the sewage blocks up and there's cholera. So one of the most obvious things, a water filter for our refugees. We get a little Sawyer mini filter. They're about 600 Rand, but let's be conservative and call them 500 for 1 million people. That's 500 million Rand. We don't have the billions and billions and billions of United States dollars, never mind Rand, that it would take for us to provide every person, or people can use their own minds to understand what I'm saying, or in some cases, every family with a tent, with 100 liters of petrol, with a water filter, 4 sleeping bags, 6 months worth of food, medical kit, dresses, tampons, nappies, etc. It would cost, I'm not exaggerating, you and I spoke about this the other day, it's not fantastic, it's not a wild exaggeration to say that the minimum amount of money you would require to do that properly is about $100 billion. We don't have even 1 million Rand spare. So what we say to people is, we provide the blueprint, you provide the bricks to build the house. We provide the architect's drawings and the project management plan. We provide you a safe destination, routes, coordinates, methods and means and advice and so on for preparation and for acting. We provide you with advice on radios and convoys, etc., etc. But only you. We will never possess the means. Only you can provide the food and the fuel and the transport and the sleeping bag and the so on. So we don't have large storehouses to be plundered in the first place. So I have a question. Right. Mm. Yeah. Yes, sir. Only on code red. Orange is to say to people there is a clear and present threat in the land. Be on your guard, be vigilant, and be prepared to move. Because if the specific incident occurs, Craig, you won't have to phone in to find out if it's code red. I don't want to go into any detail, but the specific event of which we were warned is of such a nature that if you hear about it on the radio, on the television, in passing from a friend, in a shop, you will know at once that all of our lives just changed. So be alert and be vigilant. Be prepared to act drastically in the event that you are informed. Mm. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I know this from my family, Craig. Certain relatives of mine close to me, and we've spoken about this, debated it, argued it, what have you. And one person said to me, if I thought the way you do, Simon, I would commit suicide. In other words, what you're saying is so scary that I'd rather not think about it at all. And that's human nature, Craig. Some people are just too damn terrified to address the problem. And look, the farmer issue, which you rightly bring up, is perhaps a slightly different thing. That's maybe more complacency. But even in terms of complacency, you've got the liberal media telling you day after day after day that it's not really that bad. You've got people standing up in parliament and making clear allusions to Suidlanders causing panic. You've got AfriForum. They have a thing called a snertometer, which means a nonsense meter, more or less. And when we implemented our code orange, they brought out their snertometer again and said that what we were saying was complete snap, complete rubbish, that it was level orange on the snertometer too. We were talking level orange. And but this is the thing, Craig. AfriForum and their allies in the broad the mainstream media and what have you are determined to play this thing down. They are absolutely determined. They are at the very core of the problem. But there's a lovely irony in all of this. One of the associated organizations of AfriForum contacted me a few days ago and has asked me to hold a meeting with them today to give them advice, specific advice on what's happening in the country. So it's reached the point now where these guys who are pretending that there's not a crisis, own members are saying, excuse my language, but bull dust, we can see that there is, and we want Suidlanders to come in, tell us what they know, and tell us how we can prepare. And they're not the first, by the way. They will be the one, two, three, third organization allied to. Mm, mm. Yeah, Craig, you've got a point, but I've addressed this with the farmers. You know what the difficulty is all of these guys have tried it. All the guys I know, because they're right wing, they're very Christian, very passionate, folks, thoughts people. The problem with the whites in the squatter camps is that they've become infected. You are dealing with people who are, it's difficult, Craig. When you go into those squatter camps and you see how the people are living and how they're thinking, now you bring them onto a farm and you bring the alcoholism, the drug abuse, the I hate to say it, but the incest onto your farm too. There's a lot of these people have been crushed so low that their first instinct is to opt for the base, to opt for, there's a word that the Americans use, and I can't think what it is right now. I'll think of it in a minute. It's difficult. These guys have tried it. And in fact, I've witnessed it. I was on one farm where the farmer brought on 3 young white men. And, oh, Craig, these people are so damaged. They are so damaged by 25 years of being driven into the ground, of being crushed underfoot. In America, you would know this better than I would, but in the USA, there's this thing kind of around socialism. The moment you mention the word socialism, everybody gets their backs up. No form of socialism is acceptable. I'll say 2 things. Firstly, the degree of socialism in the USA is about 100,000 times greater than it ever was in South Africa. The food stamps, the welfare support, the housing subsidies, the rent control, the medication, the pain clinics, the opioids that you can get, on request without even in some cases a doctor's prescription, is far beyond the imagination of the average hardcore left-wing Marxist. The second thing worth saying is that in South Africa, we had a Yeah, I did some mathematical exercises, Craig, and the numbers involved are astonishing. I mean, it's at a point where nobody can deny it. They can't say, well, it's only an average of $25.08 a month. It's not. You look, we needn't, but in South Africa, we had a system called Christian nationalism, and it was effectively a Christian socialism. And what that did very, very well was provide a foundation of support that gives people dignity and permits them to move forward. And that was applied very much to blacks as whites. And I'll tell you now, before any black person watching this gets indignant, I was the one and only non-ANC member present in the room of the 5,000 people who elected Jacob Zuma, the plenary session of the 52nd elective conference of the African National Congress in Polokwane in 2007. With my own eyes, I was there and I know what I'm talking about. And at the time that they were breaking all the microphones and smashing the desks and the voting panels and the remote controls and what have you, as they laid waste to that room, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a big time ANC activist, but I know him through my industry. We worked in the same industry for a long time. And so I was speaking to him as a colleague with insight into the ANC. And I said to him, his name is Mobi, it means ugly. And that's his mom christened him Mobi. I said to him, Mobi, why? Why are they destroying all of our equipment like this? Millions of rands worth of gear being destroyed. And he said, Simon, it comes down to one thing. The apartheid government built better 4-roomed houses for black people than the ANC is doing. And therefore, we want to change. Zuma's going to come in and he's going to fix everything. So, sorry for the long lecture, but the reality is that these whites in these squatter camps have been trodden so low into the mud that they are very difficult to work with. They have been badly messed up. And there's nothing in our society, as there used to be, to build them up, to give them a job at the post office, to say, we won't give you money for free, not a cent, but you can have free healthcare and your children can have free education. And you can, and yeah, look, I would say certainly 300,000. I don't know the numbers, you may be right and I might be wrong, but from what I've seen, You're looking at hundreds of thousands for certain. Mm. Yes, yes. Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah. Well, look, people have tried, Craig, and people are trying. Suidlanders is not a white squatter representative organization. We have one core purpose, and that's the end of it. However, yes, yes, and we get contacted from time to time, and we put people, Americans, for example, in touch with people like Monica, who does such a good job. Um, And some of our guys, particularly the West Rand province, do a fair amount of work in the squatter camps. And some of our farmers do take on poor people. I mean, I know a farmer now who is employing a woman. He's employing a family, and in the family is a woman. Not the husband didn't, but the woman, the wife, did come out of a squatter camp. So people do it where they can, but it's difficult because some of the people are beyond repair. And I hate to say that, but in my direct experience of being on these farms and meeting these people and seeing them given these opportunities handed on a plate, and seeing them mess them up, it does seem as if they have been damaged beyond repair. Craig, I'm sorry to say it. Craig, we found two databases of churches before we left the USA. They were liberal watchdog organizations in the USA, liberal, who kept databases of the most right-wing churches. So we thought, yay, we can't go wrong. These guys would love to meet us. It was two databases. The total was 936 churches. Not one single one of them would let us speak to them. If I'd been a Ugandan, lesbian, cripple, single mother with AIDS, they would have thrown the doors open to me. The US conception of right wing and our conception of conservative or right wing, are not the same thing. Those churches were terrified by the idea of a white racist maniac organization coming to speak to them, and none of them would have us. In the end, we had the privilege of speaking to one single church in the USA where the pastor has been kicked out because he doesn't accept liberal theology and all of the made up nonsense. He refuses to train gays for the pastorship. He refuses to do gay marriage, all of this kind of stuff. And he had 13 people in the church the day that I spoke, and I got a $200 check from him. No, I don't believe I do. Maybe I'm not. I don't think so. Yeah. Not offhand, Craig. I meet a lot of people. Um, Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. Okay, okay, okay. Now I might know who you're talking about. I'm still not certain, but talk some more. Oh, Wordendal. Man, Craig, I believe it's a little bit before my time, so I don't want to say too much. If you ever want to do a follow-up conversation, I'll gladly do it. I'm not dodging the subject. I'm vaguely familiar with it, but it was long before my time, and I'd be talking out of turn. I've only kind of heard rumors and anecdotes in passing. I can't offer much comment, but if you like, I'll find out more, and next time I can tell you. Yeah, it's classic. It's absolutely classic. It's yeah, yeah, yes, yes. Yeah, it's classic. Right, right. Is he the guy who contacted me, Craig? There's a. Oh, okay. Ah, I see what you mean. Right, 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 right. Okay, yes. Um, mm, mm. I'm positive. I'm positive. I was told by an ANC person. Hold on, I'm going to light a cigarette because our interview's much longer than expected now. So I apologize in advance. Uh, but yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm loyal to Lion matches. I Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. My father worked for Lion Match. So I probably drove past your house on whatever occasion that I might have gone to my dad's work many times. Can you believe that, huh? Yes, yes, I know. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Okay, so you grew up in Umgani, or practically on Umgani Road. Wow. Wow. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Anyway, getting back to this Gaddafi thing, I was told, because I did a lot of work for the ANC, not as an ANC member, but as a contractor to the ANC or the government, because I was in a particular industry, live event industry. Let me be clear. Um, it's a bit like being a road builder in South Africa. If you're building roads, you're doing work for the government. End of story. Because there ain't nobody else who commissions roads, you know, apart from maybe Anglo American on a mine or something. So in the same way, I was in an industry in which it's dominated by the government, and I was considered the kind of guy that, you know, could read and write and count and was dependable and was friendly and amicable and got on well with the black people around him in those environments. And I don't regret it for 1 second. For that, I will never recant or apologize. I'm in fact proud of the healthy, decent, respectable, mutually encouraging, and very compassionate relationships that I had with certain black people, certain of whom were kind to me beyond kindness. But in that environment, you hear things. And if you spend a lot of time with people, you hear a lot. And I was told by a very, very good source, I would like to believe it's a very good source anyway, certainly somebody who would know, that the ANC was set up with Muammar Gaddafi's money and Russian money. Apparently, it happened like this. This is what I was told. When Nelson Mandela got out of jail, his first stop was the Zion Christian Church. Now, this is not an allegation. I am parroting a story that was told to me. His first stop was the Zion Christian Church, and they gave him something like 10 million rand in seed capital. He's, you know, to kind of get the ANC off the ground now. It's going to cost billions of rands for the election and, you know, buy people houses and all sorts of things. His second stop was Muammar Gaddafi, where he got some immense sum of money. And the third stop was Russia. And apparently, the nuclear deal in South Africa goes back to that money. At that time, 26 years ago, before the first multiracial democratic elections in 1994, they struck a deal with the Russians whereby they would receive large sums of money. I don't know how much exactly, but presumably billions of rands. And in return, down the line, they would ensure that a Russian company got the South African nuclear deal so that the kickbacks could then repay that funding. Well, this next phase of our nuclear program, which is meant to happen be built at Tuispunt near Oosterbaai, not far from St. Francis Bay and Jeffreys Bay. Excuse me. Yeah. Apparently, the amounts involved are not fantastically high, but there is leakage. Yes, yes. No, it was confirmed. It was confirmed just a few weeks ago. They finally admitted once and for all that there are leaks, but they provided pretty credible evidence that the leaks are not severe. Yes, 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 yes. 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 Yeah. Yes. Yes. Mm. Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 Well, that's the thing. I mean, the first apartheid laws the first of the laws that became part of apartheid were implemented by the British immediately after the Anglo-Boer War. And by 1948, when the nationalists took power, we were still part of the British Empire, but the nationalists took power in 1948. The system of apartheid was 100% existent. And then it was given a name. In order to justify it before the world, Prime Minister Verwoerd said, look, this apartness is the best way to make the best of a bad situation, as it were, because the cultures are irreconcilable. You can't reconcile such disparate cultures. And I've said to people in the past, and I know it sounds terribly racist and all of this kind of stuff, but here's the reality. The reality is this. You cannot, if you've got an Alsatian dog and a cat that fight and fight and fight, you cannot hope to improve the situation by putting them together in the same room rather than letting them roam free in the garden. And then when they fight more and more and more and more and more, you say, well, maybe if I put them in a cage together. And then when they fight one another to death, you cry over it. The reality is that our situation in South Africa is intractable. It cannot be resolved. That is not said in the spirit of negativity or pessimism or destructiveness, but there will never be a time when right-thinking, decent, Christian, conservative people accept the rampant theft, murder, rape, stealing of farms, affirmative action laws, and so on. That is never going to come to pass. And there's equally never going to be a time when the hopeless, helpless, and lost, and I'm quoting an ANC document, by the way, that I was given for a particular purpose. I was asked to develop an event, and I required more information of their thinking about the event, and so they provided me certain internal discussion documents. And I won't break the confidence, but I will quote from the one where the ANC talks about the massive numbers of helpless, hopeless, and lost people that have emerged, as it were, since the time of democracy, the people that they can't look after because they don't have the systems, they don't have the means, they don't have the will, they don't have the commitment, they don't have the interest. There will never be a time when those millions and millions of helpless, hopeless, and lost people are content with their lot. So you've got, on the one hand, a bunch of people saying our society is going mad, and on the other hand, you've got a bunch of people saying we want it to go madder in the hope that we get something out of it. Craig, at the moment, our income tax base is 3.1 million people. 3.1 million people in South Africa pay income tax out of a population of about 58 million people. There are 16.3 million people on social grants. It can't work. It can't work, Craig. It just can't work no matter what anybody says. And now we have a situation which most people are unaware of. And I think, with all due respect to your viewers are 10 times better informed than the average white South African. But I think that even your viewers are perhaps oblivious to this fact. 2 years ago, 2 very important speeches were given in private. They were later leaked, but the leaks were kept very suppressed, never disputed, but the leaks were. The advisor to the Minister of Finance at the time said in a closed invitation-only conference, I think it was called Finance by Blacks or Black Finance Only or something, it was only black people invited to it. He said, in response to a question about how the ANC is leading the economy, when will you people get it into your thick heads? We are trying to destroy the economy. We have to destroy the economy. We have to bring it down to the level of Venezuela or Zimbabwe, because only if we destroy the economy will we blacks be able to pick up the pieces for ourselves and own everything. This revolution that's happening in South Africa, this crisis is not an accident. It's like if you're in a marriage with a person who's maybe mentally a little bit unstable. You know, you hear these stories about the crazy husband or the crazy wife, whatever. You hear these sad stories. And people say, but why is he doing that? Why does she behave like that? It's because that's who they are. This person is never happy unless there's an argument. This person is never happy unless they're breaking your, excuse my language, your tajas. This person is never happy unless he's drunk. This person is never happy unless he's expressing his anger against women by beating them. There's no why. It's what, and similarly, the nature of the beast of the new South African rainbow nation is such that it is a monster that will eat its own entrails, and it will be glad that it did. And people should stop wailing and gnashing their teeth over it. They should stop writing racist invective on public boards and saying things like, can't the blacks see what they're doing? Oh, dear me, they're so stupid. Get over it. This thing is deliberate, and it's going to happen. No matter how much you wail and shriek and gnash your teeth, you cannot stop this. It is a determined revolution. And right now we are seeing that there is a clear, sorry, Craig, I'll finish in just a second. There is a clear matrix of cooperation between forces that are ostensibly opposed to one another. You have white businessmen, the biggest white businessmen in South Africa, I won't mention names or my life will be worth nothing, funding the BLF. This is not an opinion, it's a fact. We've had the evidence presented to us in paper. It's beyond dispute. You've got the BLF, who ostensibly hate the ANC, being sponsored by the former president, who's still a member of the ANC. You've got the EFF that was founded by the ANC to occupy the political territory to its left that it couldn't be seen to occupy because it was too politically incorrect in the eyes of the international community for the ANC to be so left-wing. So they set up the EFF as their proxy, and the EFF is now apparently turned on them. I've said enough. Craig, imagine if you had some medical condition and you were a really strong guy, Iron Man, you know, like a superhero. Let's be a little bit fanciful for a second. And you couldn't get your medicine. What would you do? You would march into the local hospital, you'd beat everybody out the way, you'd go to the pharmacy, you'd get your medicine. The answer to your question is that when the food runs out, the anger of the poor and dispossessed, of the most vulnerable sectors of society, of the helpless, hopeless, and lost is going to be directed at white people because Andile Mngxitama, Julius Malema, Jacob Zuma, and hundreds of others have laid all of the problems of the new South African Rainbow Nation at the door of white people. So when things become critical, black people who've been receiving this rhetoric, this propaganda, this brainwashing for 25 years, or in fact 40 years, are going to turn on white people. They are going to rape, pillage, and plunder and maraud against white people. And that's why, and many people don't have the wits, I'm sorry to say it, to understand this. That's why Suidlanders is saying this will, by definition, be a race war. We're not saying that our primary enemy is the black people. And in fact, if you go on our website, you can go into our archives and see that our leader, Mr. Gustav Miller, has generated dozens of articles explaining why globalism, Freemasonry, and the rest are our primary enemies. But the crisis will be a black white crisis because the poor and dispossessed, the helpless, hopeless, and lost black people, when this society crumbles, will naturally turn on those people whom they have been told, number one, are to blame, and number two, have lots of food and have lots of money and have infinite resources. So, by definition, it has to be a race based war, not because Satan has got up in the morning hating black people. Our first hatred is against those people who misled the whites of South Africa, the churches that preach false doctrines, and so on. It's not blacks, and that's a fact. And there's reams of evidence to that effect. But when the rubber hits the road, there are going to be a lot of very sad and very angry black people and a lot of very vulnerable white people. Thank you, Craig. Thank you for the opportunity for Suidlanders to come onto your channel. God bless you for the work that you're doing. I know that you're far away and it would be easy for you to turn your back, but you haven't done so, and we're grateful for that. Yes. Mm, 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 mm. Yes, that's correct. Yes, yes. Mm, 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 mm. Because he's part of the problem. To the globalists, they love it. They love this crisis. Anyway, thank you very much, Craig. God bless you for the work that you're doing. Cheers. Bye bye.